So this is the story of how monotheism, the belief in one God only, arose out of polytheism, the belief in many gods. We've seen already how our history as a species, as Homo sapiens, has been one of animism and worship of gods like the Lord of the Beasts and so on. As Larry Seidentop, the historian, argues, all ancient religions in recorded history, which is where we've now got to, were a form really of ancestor worship, where you worshipped the ground upon which your ancestors walked and under which they were buried. He argued that the original kind of political unit was the family unit, with the paterfamilias at the top, the father figure. And his role was as priest. He would keep the fires alive in the hearth. Those are the family fires, which are there to represent, and in some ways are, the ancestors. And he would sacrifice to his ancestors who were buried under the ground. That established a mythology around that particular family. Now, over time, those mythologies become religions. And you can see this in the way that ancient tribes used to worship their gods, of which they'd have a huge pantheon. They would worship them as those gods who defended them, not the only gods that existed, but rather the gods who were on their side. And if you lost your land, the place where your ancestors were buried, you lost your gods. If another tribe with a more powerful god came along and took your land, you lost everything. So when you're fighting for your land, for your country, for your family, you are being patriotic. You are fighting for the paterfamilias. You are fighting for your gods. So the question today is, how did we go from worshipping a whole range of gods within any particular pantheon, what's called polytheism, to worshipping just one god, and a god that is no longer tied to the land or to your ancestors, who is in some way above human affairs? Our story of how polytheism became monotheism really rests on the story of two originally polytheistic gods, El and Yahweh. El was the Canaanite high god, a high god as part of a pantheon, a polytheistic group. The others for the tribes of Canaan were those like Baal, Anat, and Asherat. Now, the father of this particular religion, the worship of El, was Abraham, who you may have heard of. He's in the Old Testament, as well as the Quran. Now, Abraham was a worshipper of El. And in fact, the stories that you read in the Old Testament of El are those that are anthropomorphic in nature, where God walks amongst humans, has intentions and purposes. And he's the one who directed Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, remember? And after sparing Isaac, established that he would be the father of Israel. Israel being translated as El perseveres. The other god is Yahweh, who is a Midianite god. The most famous Midianite is Moses. Now, that kind of God, Yahweh in the Bible, is also represented. He's the one who isn't so anthropomorphic, so he doesn't appear in human form. He rather appears in dreams and generally off camera, as it were. Now, the mixing together of these two gods, Yahweh and El, comes in the story of Exodus, when Moses, the Midianite, goes into Egypt to rescue the Israelites. And he tells them that Yahweh is there to claim them. Now that's interesting for them, isn't it? Because they worship El, not Yahweh. Well, Yahweh rescues them, and then Moses goes up the mountain and talks to Yahweh, who gives him the 10 Commandments. And as Moses comes down, he notices that the Israelites are worshipping the golden calf. The golden calf being the primary symbol of El. Isn't that interesting? These two religions are merging, but certainly not without conflict. Now, you may of course be thinking, well, this is very, very strange. This isn't what I understood the Bible to be at all. I thought it was just the worship of God or Lord God. And it is. It's been merged together. You've encountered it as one text, but it never was originally one text. It was rather a collection of different texts. And the terms have been translated. So El is often translated in the Old Testament as God and Yahweh as Lord. Now, this is all very interesting, I hope you're thinking, but how is this relevant to the story of polytheism to monotheism? Well, at this point in the story, after Moses has rescued the Israelites, they're still not really a monotheistic religion. They re-establish Israel in Jerusalem, but it's still a tribal cult. It's still a form of polytheism. So how does it go from polytheism to monotheism? How does that great leap, that huge mental change occur? Well, it occurs when Jerusalem is invaded. The Babylonians, the worshippers of the god Marduk, take Jerusalem from the Israelites, and the Israelites are suddenly dispersed, and they're faced with a terrible choice. Either abandon their God, or gods, El and Yahweh, whose land is now gone, as every tribe has before, or do something radically new. Believe that that God is not tied to the land, but is rather above all other things. That Marduk isn't stronger than Yahweh El, but rather that Marduk doesn't really exist at all.